everybody. Economic Development webinar series, Creating Employment Opportunities Through a Community Economic Development Strategy. My name is Linda Hembry, and I'm the CED Specialist under Stacey Flowers, who is the Director of Community Economic Development here at the National Partnership. So thank you for joining us. So I want to give you housekeeping have a few housekeeping information for you, and I obviously want you to know that the webinar is being recorded, although you guys are all muted, so we can't hear your background noise or anything like that, but I do want to let you know that if we open it up for open questions or anything. Just so that questions can be asked through your Q&A tab that should be on your right-hand side up in the upper right. And also, I want to let you know that if you want to connect me, you can send me a private message, and I will be happy to answer any technical questions that you have. And we will be making the presentation available to both our website and through email. So I'll send you an email link, and it will have the recording as well as the slides that our presenter is going to be sharing with us today. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to use your raise hand or just your chat function on the toolbar there. So today, as we get into this topic, it's a very appropriate topic in the time that we find ourselves in, where the unemployment rate is over 8.3% or just around 8.3%. There are people out there who don't have jobs, and in some of your areas you may have the unemployment rate may be even higher than the national average. So the topic is one that I think is very relevant to our times, and so today what our presenter Glenn is going to talk about, he's going to give us examples of the economic development projects that actually create employment opportunities in your community. And he's going to talk about investment funds, real estate investment, and social enterprises that also give you some tips to be able to create jobs and also to engage your other broader community representatives and agencies such as colleges and workforce investment boards, things of that nature. So I'm going to give a bio on Glenn, and then I'm going to turn it over to Glenn Sineda he is the Director of Technical Assistance for the California Community Economic Development Association, which often is called CECIDA, and also is very, very familiar with community action in that he has consulted with several hundred, probably, community action agencies across the nation, providing very technical information to agencies about their programs in economic development. He worked for the Bank of America for over 13 years as their Senior Vice President and Regional Manager in the Affordable Housing and Lending Department. So he's got experience, very, very knowledgeable on the subject of economic development, and also has a BS in urban planning from the Baltimore, from the Department of Training Institute in Baltimore, and also has a Pacific Coast degree from the University of Washington. So I'm going to turn it over to Glenn, and he is going to present you with the information that he has to share with you, and then at the end, or close to the end, we will open it up for general questions, but you can always type in your questions, and I will read them off if we have time to. If not, we will answer your questions via email. Okay. All right, there you are.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Quick summary on my background. Although I'd spent 13 years at B of A involved with affordable housing lending as well as other types of lending to community development, I also spent 13 years working for a nonprofit involved with community development and housing. So when I was with the bank, my whole goal and my activities focused on figuring out ways to be able to bring more capital to community development organizations and kind of enhancing their projects and programs. So I'm kind of in between the line between the corporate side and the community development side. And let me get rolling here. We've got a lot to cover. This slide here talks a little bit about the Community Economic Development Program by the Community Action Partnership. And this has some website information where you could jump on under the economic development part of their work there, and has a lot of resources, some of it that we've been working on. And we're going to kind of talk a little bit about those resources and how that really kind of melts into our discussion today. There are toolkits that have been put together that we've been working on over the last couple of years, and I'll tell you a little bit about the subjects on those, but they're very much a guide that provides step-by-step instruction. You actually get to learn about the different subject areas of community economic development, and you can actually see how projects are done. And it's a real detailed handbook that takes you through the process one step at a time. And it also talks about resources and gives you some tips on things that you should watch out for. And this chart here kind of summarizes how we've been approaching this whole subject, working with a lot of the folks at the Community Action Partnership. A foundation column on the far left, you've got the key items under organization, the key things that an organization needs to have in place before you get involved with a lot of CED activities. It includes strategic plan, business plans, making sure your board, management, and staff are on key, make sure your legal structures are in place. And then it's understanding the project, understanding your community, understanding your local government, understanding what your community wants to do, whether it's a community plan or district, and then actually putting that together in some sort of a concept. Now, under project, what we've done is broken out community economic development into 4 major categories. So you see under CED activity, there's real estate development, business development, lending, and then services and individual assets. And then on the next column, there are projects. And these are essentially the breakdown of categories for the handbooks or the toolkits that are available online. And you can see how it's broken out. Under real estate, there's some real detailed work on different types of real estate. Business development really focuses on technical assistance as well as social enterprises. So it really focuses on developing businesses. Under lender side, it talks about different types of lending programs and structures that folks have used to meet community credit needs. Under services and individual assets are the different types of service programs that really support community economic development activities. On the right are development steps that are actually called out in the handbooks, and project overlays are the other things that you might want to target your project for, whether it's green, job entry, children or youth, or other special needs. So it kind of focuses on that work. The way I kind of broke this down this morning is that we're going to talk about some of these strategic community economic development areas, how you can really create jobs using those strategies or those projects. We've got a lot of examples, and then we also have kind of structure where you could kind of study and really kind of determine what your opportunities might be going forward. So, and these are the toolkits that are actually available now, and these are the different subject areas that we have completed to date. Some of the really relevant toolkits include social enterprises, small business TA, and then the real estate development series. But also, we are getting approved as we speak toolkits specifically focus on loan funds, microloan funds, and community development investment funds. I should have had the CDFI one in here also, but you can take a look at that on the partnership website. Categories. So we look at the community development activity on the left column there, and that's kind of the breakdown of what we had on those earlier charts and some of the key subject areas. So under real estate development, all the different types of real estate development do have construction jobs tied to them, and typically as you get federal funds, you would report those also. But more importantly, they support a lot of job-creating activities. Having affordable housing in your community, safe and phone housing is a real important aspect for folks to be able to live in your community as well as find jobs. If you develop commercial real estate, you're actually creating and attracting businesses and industries into your community. You're creating the space that they can actually locate, and it brings in services and jobs to your community. In a lot of cases, if a nonprofit or a community action agency is involved in a major supermarket deal or a major project of that type, you can actually tie in job training requirements so that the businesses locating there have to hire folks from your community. The same goes for community facilities. It provides a space for programs that really support employment development activities. Under business development, and these are kind of the more direct activities where you're working with local businesses and creating jobs, either through startup businesses, microloans to small entrepreneurs to start their businesses, business expansion. You've got a business that you're working with and you're helping them expand, helping them with their paperwork and enabling them to grow. In finances is providing the financing for these businesses and opportunities to actually grow. And then the services and the individual assets. You've got the different programs there, but one really important one are employment service programs, such as the Workforce Investment Act, the WIA program. And these are dollars that are being allocated through the Department of Labor directly to organizations, and we'll talk a little bit more about that and how that's melted into a lot of programs and projects. So we're going to go category by category and kind of talk a little bit about the different subject areas. Now, this session is only an hour, so we're going to hit a lot of different topic areas and talk a lot about different examples. So in a lot of ways, it's to get you to think a bit more about using these strategies to create jobs. And as you see opportunities pop up here, these might be the exact same opportunities you have in your community, and you can work on expanding those opportunities to create jobs. So social enterprises are essentially nonprofit startups of businesses. It's really an advantage of your existing programs in a lot of ways, or have capacities to start a venture. And a lot of them require very low capitalization, and they essentially are fully operational businesses run by nonprofit organizations. It could be really a small program, and the examples we have later really talk about some large social enterprises. But we were just in Kentucky a couple weeks back, and at ACEOC, the Community Action Partnership in Kentucky down in the southeast there. They have just a little tiny crafts store that they operate, and takes advantages of the craftsmen in the area selling their products. So in a way, that is a social venture. It's creating income, it's creating jobs, and or help folks expand their capacity to create jobs. So it could start from a very small operation to a very large one. Some examples: janitorial services, bakeries, restaurants, catering. The crafts co-op is something very similar to what's going on in Kentucky. well as property management companies. For you folks who are really involved with real estate development or involved with affordable housing development, starting your own company that manages those properties, it's a really nice step. It's having the manager on site, having providing landscaping services and other services for the project. Well, it creates income for your organization, and creates entry-level jobs, and it provides needed goods and services. But some of the key issues is that it is a business and it has to operate as one, meaning that there's a potential for layoffs. You're relying on a manager who has to be somewhat entrepreneurial because he's actually starting, operating, and managing a business. And then having a right capitalization to get it going is really, really important. We've got some really good examples as this presentation goes on. Enterprises is also a very important step because it's working with entrepreneurs on kind of an individual one-on-one basis and helping them grow their business opportunity into potentially creating a full-time job, and at some point even being able to expand that. Organizations can play two different roles. One, provide TA, technical assistance in helping groups, but secondly, you could be providing capital, and in most cases, you should be doing both. It creates entry-level employment opportunities. It takes advantages of a lot of the skills and entrepreneurial spirit of the residents in your community or the areas that you serve. Very low overhead, very low startup costs. The key in this is that you do need to find funding to provide that ongoing training or the funding for your loan funds. Small business assistance, working with existing local business, helping them grow, is also a real important strategy. So it might be providing business services to them, such as accounting, marketing, finance, licensing, certification. So it could focus into financing and being able to get the financing. A lot has to do with how businesses operate, and there might be languages or cultural barriers behind that. It's important because small businesses are the main driver of a lot of jobs and a lot of activities, economic activities in low-income communities, and they provide really important goods and services for different communities. It's business assistance funds are tough to get. You're looking for dollars in a lot of different places. There are different federal programs out there that provide small business assistance funding coming out of USDA, the SBA, and a lot of other different sources. And also some of the banks have been involved in really focusing on providing dollars for small business assistance. Equity investment is a different strategy where you're investing capital into successful businesses and you're either attracting them to your community or you're trying to have them expand. There are, and it's nice because it takes advantage of something that's successful, and you know it's going to create jobs. You know what kind of jobs they're going to create. Some of the cues revolve around understanding the different businesses that might be an opportunity. Because you completely understand what that business is, how it operates, and whether or not they can expand. Upfront agreements on who to hire, as well as how the dollars are used. Now, the dollars in equity investment could work a lot of different ways, but what we've seen work is that the community action agency or a nonprofit gets funds from local government or other sources, uses those funds to invest in a company. Now, you can invest in a company and take part ownership, a 5% ownership, a 10% ownership, and share in the income that it generates, or as equity builds up, it's your share of the business. Or it could be structured as a loan where they pay you back as time goes on. the nice thing about revolving loans like that is that you can do it again and do it again. And we've got a good example of this is the Howard Snyder up in the Northwest Side Community Development Corporation in Milwaukee. They do this a lot, and since 2000, I think they've created over 500 jobs. They've circulated over $6 million into their community, working primarily with large businesses who are expanding or locating in their communities and agreeing to create jobs. And in most cases, they've structured it as loans where they get money back and then again invest in another business. Technical assistance is the ability to provide that technical assistance, through training and other seminars. It's difficult to obtain, but like we spoke about a little bit earlier, that financial institutions do support some of this activity, and you can target it to startups, ongoing operations, or expansions. Again, the key issues are locating the needed technical assistance when the help is needed. So it's hitting help when it's required by the different types of industries or businesses in your community, or locating the right funding to make that all happen. Get into workforce development. Let me not make sure I don't skip this. So the Department of Labor provides funds through WIA, Workforce Investment Act, and it's actually managed by local governmental entities through the Workforce Investment Boards, the WIBs. And a lot of community action agencies, either folks on your staff, the executive director, or people on your board, are members of the local WIBs. And local WIBs decide where this money goes. A lot of them might go directly into job training programs, to an organization that provides job training and provides placement services. But other dollars might go directly to corporations to help them with their labor issues. So if a large corporation is coming into a region, or trying to attract that corporation into a region, you provide them with subsidized job placement slots where they learn on the job, but they're being paid through the workforce investment dollars. So it's a real important source that really kind of ties together some of these federal programs. Now, Howard's Group that I mentioned earlier, they bring in a lot of WIB money to their projects, and I've seen it work with local community shopping centers using WIB money for a lot of training activities. The downside is a political process, and sometimes the WIB board might not be focused on the type of activities you're involved in, and a lot of it is focused on ongoing programs that have been in vogue for a number of years. So sometimes it's really hard to break into that whole world. Now, these are examples, and we've included a couple in here. We just included them who have won the different CD awards at the partnership conference. And if you don't know, the partnership has their annual conference has awardees or categories for community economic development, and folks can actually apply for that and win in different categories. And there's some money that you can win, as well as get mentioned in every single one of these webinars and every single training session. So Rural Alaska Community Action Program, it's a rural CAP up in Alaska. They created a wholly owned for-profit subsidiary. Now, this is a little bit different from a lot of groups who have nonprofit subsidiaries, but this is a for-profit one. They're mission to ethically make a profit for rural CAP, and promote energy efficiency. So it's that whole balance of having a business or social enterprise between creating income and doing good for your community, and it's that little what they call, I guess, sweet spot between the two balancing acts to make your enterprise work. They started out actually 1980s and not 1908. And they might have had programs then, but I doubt it. Anyhow, the grant kind of grew out of a federal grant early in the 1980s, and they did some research on what enterprises might work. So need-wise, the energy burden, as you would suspect, in the high northwest up in Alaska, the energy burden is pretty high because the cost of just staying warm is enormous. So business actually sells a variety of high quality, advanced technology heating and lighting products. They focused in on one initially, the Toyo stove that saves a lot in fuel costs, and they work with a network of 300 small entrepreneurial dealerships throughout rural Alaska and Western Canada. So they work with a lot of small entrepreneurs and a lot of businesses. So the jobs that are created are throughout the whole region. For 2011, their gross revenues $10 million, net income of $600,000, and they maintain $5.5 million in equity in the business. So it's been doing very well for quite a while now. Financing, the bank provides $3 million line of credit for inventory for their business. They also were able to put together, develop a central office and warehouse. So they have $1 million mortgage on that. So the income from their project, the income from their business actually helps pay for that mortgage, and it actually helps subsidize the cost for the central office. Feasibility. The initial feasibility and through a federal grant during the Bergen areas, and that would be the 1980s. The original business founder, who they work with, this is the entrepreneur involved, who actually worked with venture capitalists to get the funds for the initial investment and startup capital. Quick summary, you can see what their gross sales, net profit is, the net profit after taxes, and how their equity is structured. So they generate a lot of income working with a lot of entrepreneurs. And here's kind of a map of the different dealer network that they are working with. Benefits-wise, they donate an annual share of dividends to its foundation, and they make grants to rural nonprofits as well as local governments. The annual dividend is a source of unrestricted income to the Community Action Agency. And the dividend I mentioned earlier provides cash flows to support the building that they're located in. It adds credibility to the organization. It provides energy-saving products. They themselves have 12 full-time employees, but what they are creating and supporting a lot of businesses throughout the whole region, part of their business network. And these are some of the pictures of some of the stoves that they have. Bergen County Community Action Partnership out in New Jersey. They won a CED award also, but you probably heard of them already, and they have their cap solar project that they have put together, kind of built out of their experience in weatherization and home energy assistance programs. They did receive a grant previously to build a weatherization green technology training center, and they created this cap solar fund, and we'll talk a little bit more about how it's all structured and what it does. But it's a solar development company. Cap Solar, it's a solar development company that specializes in implementation of solar energy products for businesses and nonprofits. So they put nonprofits in most cases to provide photovoltaic systems to install on their roofs. And so essentially they work with a nonprofit. They use their funds to pay for installing the system on the roofs. The organization saves money and energy costs, and they pay a fee for the equipment over a 15-year period. Capsular also provides unrestricted cash flow to the low-income communities through shared developer fees. So they actually help subsidize the cost of of paying back for the equipment through the shared developer fee incentive. What they did was create a fund to help solarize nonprofit projects. So they work with different nonprofits in the region that serve low, moderate income communities. They create the partnership. They share developer fees, and the organizations involved receive energy savings as well as developer fees. The initial cost is covered by the fund, repayment over 15 years. And at the end of the 15-year repayment period, the ownership falls over to the nonprofit for the equipment, the solar equipment. Financing, very innovative. They worked with a couple of Wall Street type financial institutions and investment firms to create the $10 million funds, and they've used New Markets tax credits as part of that structure. And they are serving communities throughout the state there. You create 23 jobs throughout the state, and plus there's a lot of added continual benefits and lower energy costs to the organizations and participants that are partnering with them. This is a little bit of a different organization. This is Workforce Inc. in Indianapolis. Astronomical growth in prisoner populations, and this is kind of seen throughout the country. Indiana at 41%. 1 in 35 adults in Indiana is under criminal justice supervision. 1 in 26 under some correctional control. But Workforce Inc., they're located in a county where the rate is 1 in 16 and 1 in 7 for adult males. So when you're going through their community, you see some guys standing around them. One of them is under criminal justice supervision. So the incarceration rate is very high, and the recidivism rate is growing. And a lot of it's due to technical rules violations, which is essentially that when folks are let out of prison, they end up having to pay for their drug tests, for their parole, for their review by the judges, and all those costs, and they're very high, as well as anything else they might have owed in restitution or in child support payments. And if they fall behind on any of them, they get sent back to prison. So there's an issue there. In terms of market, they are involved in recycling. So they found there's much gold in a ton of electronic waste, as in 55 tons of ore. All the materials are of value and mined. So they want to focus on creating jobs as well as recycling. Some stats: 40 million computers discarded, 2 million TVs disposed in 2011, and a lot of toxic materials involved. Beyond gold, silver, and palladium are part of the materials that are found inside of electronic equipment. So the organization, they started as a prisoner reentry program and recycling business. They did things by hand initially, tore things down, resold the materials, and so they were really focused on growing that business. Big issues is balancing what their social goal is with what their business goals are. And their social goals are not only working with the individuals in the program and teaching them job and life skills, but also to make sure that they have long-term jobs that they have permanent jobs. So their whole goal was to create jobs. They created a separate entity. Um, it's run, the business is run by the program. Business and the program are actually run by the same staff, and that was kind of a question: can that work? You kind of grew because um, there were, they found a lot of opportunities for growing the recycling business. They also found that their reentry program, their training and assistance to the different folks was extremely successful. So a lot of foundations started really pouring in money and having them focus on their social activities, social service activities, and but at the same time they found a great business opportunity. They a couple of grants through OCS, and this is the CED side of the shop, the Community Economic Development. They applied for a Jolly grant in 1 year, received $700,000, an $800,000 grant from HHS, OCS, from the CED grants, and what their ultimate goal is to create 50 full-time employment jobs. So it was quite a large goal to create 50 full-time jobs. This is kind of what they did in the past. We did an analysis to see what their trends were in the past. For them to sustain the 50 jobs, we saw that they needed to generate $1,350,000 in sales, which is roughly 6.8 million pounds of materials coming through a door. This is kind of how their budget is broken down. We saw that their management team was capable of able to manage both the social services as well as the business itself, but we really wanted them to focus in on being able to manage their business because that's what makes everything work. So really looked at their business and how it ran, and really kind of called out the key variables in keeping them successful and allowing them to employ 50 folks. And basically, they had to really kind of manage the amount of tonnage taken in, sales per pound of processed materials, what they were selling the product for, and managing expenses. Someone had to be responsible for this and really kind of focused and managed it. So we knew exactly how much tonnage they needed to be successful and to maintain those jobs. And so we really focused on that. And one of the reasons is that they were able to do both. The management team were able to both operate the business as well as the social service programs. Was that they've already operated this as a team for 3 years. Always been involved with performance-based contracts. They knew that they had to meet certain goals as they burned through their different cash or resources. And they had real strong experience doing this as well as educational background. One of the guys who does a lot of their financial management and sells their materials on the open market, and their open market is essentially international. They do sell overseas. A lot of the gold and materials go to Japan and China, and they really kind of have to manage those markets to see who has the highest prices and where they can sell them. So the guy actually is worked on Wall Street before and has a really strong educational background. And this is what they did with their funds: is they bought this machine that actually can tear down materials about 20 times faster than doing it by hand. And probably even more than that. They never really got to measure it because they could never get enough materials to feed this guy. You see that with the shovel. When we were there, they were actually throwing in whole computers and CRT screens, and then there's actually a camera that watches everything being chewed up. So it really kind of does quite a bit more, and it helps them. Let me kind of back up real quick. It helps them maintain the ability to process materials. So they really did focus in on where the materials are coming from, and they are hitting their goals. Actually, they're beating them because commodity prices are so high right now. Summary. What I want to do, talk a little bit about how you come up with these different areas of CED opportunities, and it's through a sector analysis where you look at a certain sector and really focus in on what their needs are and what the opportunities are. And in your areas, they might be different depending on what's going on in your communities or what's going on industry-wise. Now, we selected and just kind of a summary, really focusing on strategies, focused in on the health food industries as an example. We did one a webinar that focused only on this, but this is kind of an example of what you need to do to really understand your industry. So if you look at healthy foods, got the source of the material, which is basically farms. You've got folks who value-added processing, which is like turning potatoes to potato chips or turning tomatoes into sauce. So it's that value-added processing that's part of the system. Someone has to distribute this stuff. All the food that's processed or coming directly from farms. It could go through farmers markets, or it could go through different other programs, food banks, as well as CSA, which are community-supported agricultural programs. You could go directly to retail stores. You could go directly to your restaurant. So you could be part of that distribution network, really focused on getting the food to those resources, and then ultimately it ends up with the consumer through these different channels. So we're going to part each one, and that's what you really need to do, is to really take it apart, see what kind of services or what kind of programs you can provide. What are you best in? Are you best in creating facilities? Are you best in financing? Are you best in providing technical assistance? Are you best working with entrepreneurs? So it really kind of breaks out what CED strategy you want to use. So we're going to look at each one of these, starting with the farm. So starting from the source, you've got co-ops, you've got a farm that provides the food materials, and it could be a co-op. Community gardens are another resource that are being tapped to bring fresh foods into markets. So it could come from a farm or co-op or from a community garden. These are some of the CED programs that you can provide. You could provide entrepreneurial training for the co-op members or for your local community garden members. You could provide business technical assistance. You could provide microloans if you're a loan provider. You could use your IDA program to support their ability to operate their business and to become successful and to be able to know how to save and work going forward. You could be the landowner. You could help these activities happen by owning land, acquiring land, and making it available, or renting it, or leasing it out to a farm entity, or if you do all of them. Better production, you could coordinate the production of value-added activities. You could be marketing materials for value-added production folks. You could be one yourself. You could be food processing, which includes both packaging and bottling of food types. You could be part of the distribution network. You coordinate sales. You could actually become the physical distributor to the different outlets. So under the value production, the first box there, you could operate, own, and manage a food processing center that packages and bottles food that's coming out from the different farms or from the different producers. And you could be the sales side of it and the distribution network side of it. All of it creates jobs in a lot of different areas. And in some cases, you might want to even be the small business itself that um, could be a social enterprise. Okay, under the farmers markets, the community-supported agricultural programs, the food banks, you could be coordinating it. You could be providing space for it. You could provide entrepreneurial training to the folks that are in the farmers markets or that are part of the food bank. Provide all the services as well as loans and your other programs. Under the retail side, the retail outlet, you could be working with retail businesses and helping them upgrade their stores to be able to sell more healthier food and food products by providing business assistance, loans. You could provide equity to help them expand. You could be the business owner of a retail establishment that creates jobs. You could be the developer of space and do real well in providing assistance and services. That's my alarm to make sure I'm not going over time. Let me turn this off. But anyways, as a development, on the developer side of it, you could be providing the space for your project or for your program. So developing space, you could be the master tenant, or you could provide turnkey operations. So that kind of ends at least my long talking session. I want to be able to take questions or any other might have. The next couple slides about who Seceda is and what kind of work we do. We're subcontracted by the partnership over the last 3 years to provide toolkits, to provide other types of technical assistance, and provide training and technical assistance resources. We work with some groups, helping them with their projects and work going forward. So I'm going to open this up and switch this over to Linda.
Glenn, so far I don't see any questions that have come through, but maybe as you were speaking, someone was thinking of a question, and maybe they're typing as I speak. Yeah, that's some good information that you provide there on how to create jobs. So, does anybody have any questions that they would like to ask? You can either raise your hand or type the question in. That opportunity. I know that but go ahead.
One thing that I just wanted to mention is we covered a lot of areas of CED, and refer back to those manuals if you want. If you're talking about being able to do a program or a project, you really look at those, because those are the ones that give you the details on what you might be thinking about going forward.
Do you want me to show me those? And the toolkits, and if there's a specific one, I can actually show it.
Oh, sure.
Okay.
That'd be great.
Let's see.
And those you can pick up on the website, or I think they made them available as some of the materials for this session. And
yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. Okay. To go to the toolkit, you would just go to www.partnershipced.org and go to resources, and then you'll down here CED toolkit. We are still in the process of doing some updates so that on the home screen, I'll go back to that so you can see. In about a week or so, you'll be able to click on this tab, and you'll have the interactive tools, and the toolkits will come up based on this section. Our web developers are still in the process of making these icons live, but that will actually be on the home page. But for now, it's on the resources tab, and different various ones that you can go to for, as you see, alternative financial resources. One were you referring to, Glenn?
Why don't you try pulling up social enterprise?
Social enterprise. Let's see. Okay. I should know what it is. Okay. And see, it comes up as a PDF document, and you can download it, save it to your computer, you can print it out, you can do whatever you choose to do. And as we flip through, you'll find, let me make that bigger so you can see, it's about what is a social enterprise, definitions, history, industry at the time that this was published, which was 2012. So, and so, how community economic development organizations use the program, and step by step. You've got a step-by-step guide, financial information, examples. So all of them are laid out the same way. So this is a really good resource, and very exhaustive. So you'll be able to really get some, information to actually apply to, from beginning to the end, or somewhere. Even if you're somewhere in the middle and say, hey, how do we do this? You can refer to one of the toolkits. And as you can see, very, very nicely, nice graphics and very well designed. This was one of the organization's work. So he partnered with us in providing these toolkits. So this is a great tool that you can use and share with people in your organization. Think about that?
And the way the whole program is designed is that you have these toolkits, and ultimately on the website you'll be able to see case studies and examples. So if you hit social enterprises, for example, you'll be able to look at examples of social enterprises. And in case studies, we get into real detail about the different types of business, very similar to what we talked about today, but it'll be in written form, and then you can actually see what sources of financing they use, and you can actually see what worked, and they talk about what issues that are important to you focusing on if you're trying to do something similar. So it becomes very, very neat tool going forward.
Right, yeah. So we have 10 different case studies and are linked to these sections. So as soon as our web developer gets them up, which, like I said, should be shortly, then you'll be able to use those as well. Let me check to see if there is anyone who has a question. I'm going to stop sharing my desktop. Let's see, any questions? So far, I don't see any questions. So you have been very thorough, Glenn, so perhaps you've been they agree with me that you've been very thorough in covering the information. So you have a question that I can tell. So if you have your information to cover, go ahead.
One point is that if you have any questions on this, you do have my email address in there, and feel free to email me if you have any thoughts or questions or things that you're thinking about, and then we'd be glad to steer you into the right direction or give you examples of what we've seen across the country that you might want to check into to see how someone else might have gotten it done, or other resources or financing tools that you might want to use.
Right. Yep. And well, a lot, Glenn, and this is going to conclude our Create Employment Opportunities Through a Community Economic Development Strategy webinar. Thank you all for attending, and I will be forwarding you the presentation sometime between tomorrow and Monday, so you'll have the entire presentation with the recording, as well as you will be able to find it on our website under our CED, partnership CED.org, under webinars, which is under resources. So, okay, thank you very much. Thanks, Glenn.
Thank you.
All right, bye.